We're live.
Thank you so much. Welcome back to Senate Education on Tuesday, February 1st. We are taking a look right now at the issue that we spent a lot of time on last year, and that is literacy. This committee was deeply involved in conversations and passed what I consider to be a pretty comprehensive literacy bill. And we're here today with Ms. DeCarolis from AOE, and is it pronounced Ms. Porcella? Yeah.
Sure.
Oh no, please. I want to pronounce it properly.
Well, my family did what lots of families did, and that was Americanize a nice Italian name. So,
Okay.
Porcella.
Okay. Well, thanks for being with us. We're just trying to get an update on, what's happening out there with the implementation around professional development and those kinds of things. So, I don't know who wants to take it away, but we're all ears.
Okay, well, so we'll start. For the record, I'm Jess DeCarolis, Division Director in Old Shoe at the Agency of Education, and my colleague, Meg.
Who muted herself again. Hi, I'm Meg Porcella. I'm the Assistant Director of the Student Support Services Division, and someday hope to be a rock star like Jess DeCarolis is for Senate Ed.
Goodness sake.
Good. Good.
So we did provide a summary. Again, I'm going to do my little camera thing, and you may hear my dog, who's now acting up as well.
No problem.
So, and I heard that you have a stop at 4, so I'm going to try to sort of.
Yes, we could go a little longer than 4. I think we're going to start a little bit after 4. So,
okay.
Yeah, if you want to just aim for 4:05.
Sure. And again, we're delighted to be here to provide an update. And, as obviously and played an instrumental role in the Advisory Council on Literacy that was established in 2021, really has specific charges that do have intersections with the work that we've also been charged with. So the updates to 16 VSA 2903, assistance to supervisory unions on implementing the statewide literacy plan, collection of literacy data, best practices for literacy instruction, and a review of assessments and outcomes. And I really appreciated the Literacy Council Chair, Gwen Carmoli, in her testimony when she described how exciting and ambitious this charge is. And we agree that with several interconnected components, Act 28 not only offers an opportunity to engage the field in improving outcomes, but it also allows us to engage in a strategic implementation for sustained change, which I think we're all looking for. So we really believe that this should be conceived as a multi-year effort, worthy of that precious investment of time that Gwen Carmoli requested, and it's really critical to the state's education recovery efforts. As you know, the Act appropriated one-time federal funds to support both a contractor or limited service position to coordinate statewide literacy efforts, as well as one-time federal funds for providing professional development learning modules for teachers, methods of teaching literacy and assisting supervisory unions in implementing evidence-based systems-wide literacy approaches that address learning loss. That's a mouthful. So we're here to provide a few updates. The first one being professional learning. There's a couple components to this. So probably of most interest is where we're at with our requests for proposals. In August 2021, the agency, and that would be Meg and I, met with leadership from the Vermont Curriculum Leaders Association, or VCLA, to review an outline of proposed professional development to support literacy instruction. And we really did want to hear from the field, and particularly these folks who are both systems leaders and curriculum leaders, what would be really important for statewide professional learning as an approach. The agency described a continuum of professional learning and identified, based on that discussion, design elements that would be essential in making a lasting investment with these one-time federal funds. And again, I just want to emphasize, we want to make sure that we're doing something that these funds will dry up in 2024. So we want to make sure that the professional learning does not dry up in 2024. So a few of those professional learning design elements include that they should be modular and stackable in nature, that they can be standalone professional learning or as part of a mixed delivery approach, which would mean that you could even have online learning outcomes, but have an in-person facilitator at the local level, that they would offer a learning progression from entry-level content for all content disciplines and educators that everyone should know, as well as then progressing to age or grade level specific content and approaches. They really felt strongly that it needed to offer systems level implementation content, and that's consistent with the DMG report, Act 173 and Act 28, and that they could be maintained beyond the life of ARP ESSER funding. The AOE drafted a request for proposal in September 2021 for a contractor to develop an online self-paced professional learning training module that provides the information about the neuroscience of literacy, so how the brain and language develop for all educators. This professional learning product will be designed so that it can stand alone as an introductory course to provide educators with foundational information regarding the neuroscience behind language acquisition and literacy skills development. And we do envision this as a sustainable resource that can be accessed by supervisory unions and districts for initial and refresher PD for new and veteran educators who work within their districts, because we know that we've got movement between districts as well as new educators coming into systems. As part of the state of Vermont's procurement process, any RFP that may involve acquiring new IT investments has to go through a separate Agency of Digital Services or ADS procurement process. In discussions with ADS, a determination was made that we would need to compete both for a web-based platform and the learning content that would be hosted on that platform. And subsequently, that has resulted in a delay as we have engaged in the IT RFP process. And this is a process that's managed by ADS. The agency is currently working with an ADS team on requirements gathering for the RFP, and we anticipate that the RFP will be posted in early spring. This is a great opportunity as well, though. If we have that platform, right, that also engages that sort of sustainability. Additionally, we have ongoing professional learning happening right now, the Early Literacy Network Improvement Community. So beginning in October 2021, teams of pre-K and K teachers or kindergarten teachers, their literacy and instruction coaches, the principals, if it was possible, and obviously we know that we've got people who are really tapped, and individuals from district central office. So this would be directors of literacy, directors of curriculum, directors of early childhood, committed to engage in an improvement science approach to early literacy teaching and learning. And this is that Network Improvement Community, or NIC. The experience is designed to support application of improvement science approaches to early literacy development and professional learning opportunities in effective early literacy instruction. The shared aim goal of this group, and this is a multi-state group, as well as we have a Vermont cohort, is to improve all pre-K and kindergarten students' foundational reading and writing skills. As part of their participation, NIC teams agreed to meet as a cohort with teams from other participating states for 8 90-minute sessions between October and May, where they hear content presentations from Nell Duke about effective early literacy instruction and talk in breakout rooms with other teams from their state. They attend a state-specific 60-minute meeting once per month, also with Nell Duke. And then they also meet as a district-specific team for 60 minutes twice per month to continue to work on this is called Plan, Do, Study, Act, or PDSA cycles. You may have heard these referenced in continuous improvement planning, where they apply information from the above to their specific district context. They could also substitute that out for job-embedded coaching cycles, which can be a very effective practice at the local level. And then during these convenings, they also receive support from the Council of Chief State School Officers, or the CCSSO, which I'm sure you've heard referenced before. We also wanted to tackle pre-service learning. So in spring of last year, we have been working with the Education Development Center, or Region 1 Comprehensive Center, to outline a project to assess the degree to which educator preparation programs, or EPPs, are adequately preparing teachers in Vermont to incorporate literacy instruction in their classrooms, and to make sure that they were being prepared in alignment with the blueprint, which is our state's literacy plan. And this is actually a strategy that Massachusetts and other states have also used with great effect. The project includes a process for reviewing course syllabi for evidence-based literacy strategies. And our goal is that, each participating educator prep program would submit syllabi to the R1CC, and a syllabi review would then be conducted by a trained team of reviewers representing a combination of EPP faculty and the Region 1 staff. We did have 6 of our EPPs participate in this process. So as of last week, all reviews of syllabi for any courses that address literacy and ed prep programs for early childhood special education, and elementary tracks were completed. The R1CC began meeting individually with each of the 6 EPPs that agreed to participate in the project. An anonymous report will be drafted in February with a goal of submitting a first draft to the agency for initial review in late February or early March. And just as a note, with any sort of comprehensive center, they have to go through this sort of formal review process. So likely we won't have a final report until the end of March or early April. And that would be a really effective report to share with the Literacy Council. And then the agency is meeting actually on Thursday to discuss initial findings and work with them to build out, how we might increase the capacity building for the state. And that's a conversation we'll be engaging in on Thursday. Finally, agency staffing, we do have a limited service position funded, appropriation for that position, and it is currently under active recruitment within my division. In the interim, in September, I convene an interdisciplinary team. Meg sits on that team. It represents multiple teams and divisions across the agency who have knowledge expertise to support the Literacy Council. The agency has provided the following technical assistance to the Literacy Council, and you can see that there's a hyperlink to a web page where you can actually access those documents. But we provided a comprehensive data presentation in October. We provided some briefs around defining literacy and the Smarter Balanced ELA assessment, the relationship between reading enjoyment and proficiency, a glossary of terms, and then most recently in January, we presented both on the blueprint, provided some questions, but then we also provided a fairly extensive walkthrough of a question and answer based on follow-up questions that the council had in November. I'm going to pause there. I read that really fast.
Questions at this point for Ms. DeCarolis? So right now you're feeling as though you don't need anything from us. Things are going okay.
What a loaded question. In a pandemic.
Well, no, I just want to know, trying to get a sense, is there something as we look forward, to doing the budget and other things, is there anything that you might need from us, from the assembly?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it might be too early to say. I will say that we agree with Gwen Carmoli that allowing the council with the agency to proceed in a very intentional way to make sure that all of the piece, because there's just a lot to weave together, right? We don't want to pull the thread of the sweater and then all of a sudden the sweater's gone, right? We want to make sure that we're engaging in a very intentional way. And there's a lot to be done here, right? Because we have a lot of existing work. We've posed some questions to the council in the last meeting for them to go back and sort of think about. Plus, and I think it's so important that Meg is here. Obviously, the interrelationship between Act 28 and Act 173. So when we're talking about improving literacy outcomes for students, we are talking about systems change as described in Act 173. And those things have to go together in lockstep, which it furthers the complexity. It's totally doable. It just is not something that's going to happen with any sort of rapidity, particularly in the middle of a pandemic. Meg, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Ms. Portillo.
I will just absolutely put an exclamation point at the end of this. And as I don't know if it's going to be a pivot, but as we start talking about whatever recovery means as it comes from the agency, all of these plates will have to be spinning, and we want them to be spinning in a really intentional, reasonable, logical, humane way for the field.
Yeah. I hope the answer to this question is not going to be just DeCarolis, but who is overseeing the recovery? Who is the point person for, I know that there's a recovery plan that the agency is working on. I know it's been talked about in this committee. It was on the news this morning. Who is our point person on that?
Well, I'm happy to offer up Secretary French.
Okay. Deputy Secretary Boucher was on this morning, but it wasn't identified that she was the leader. So we'll say Secretary French.
And he might direct you to some other people, because obviously it'd be a coordinated agency-wide approach. But I think he is the natural lead.
Yeah. Okay. I had another question, but it escaped me. Committee, other questions as it relates to this work? Okay, Senator Pershler.
I just have a comment that I hear from my constituents that were on the study committee or task force or whatever we called it. And they had good things to say about the experience and good things to say about Just a Careless. Like everybody, it's Just a Careless Day.
Oh my goodness.
It's Just a Careless Day. I
Oh
love
my
it.
God.
It should
February
be just a
1st.
careless day. The interactions with the Act 28 advisory group have been phenomenal.
Great.
And they're a very dedicated group. I mean,
Really
we're
great.
very lucky to have that council.
And Gwen Carmoli is doing a wonderful job leading.
Yeah, she's great. She's great. May I ask, a lot of this makes me just think back to a conversation this committee's had and around standardized testing this year. And honestly, I keep kind of going back and forth in my mind. It seems, you know, it worries me to have a young child sitting there stressed about it, not doing well, getting bad test scores back, and it actually, you know, and in some way harming them, you know. And then at the same time, I think, well, we might need to just get a sense of where kids are at right now, you know, see where they're at, recognize that this has been really incredibly hard on children and teachers and people. No one believes that kids are going to really show where they actually should be, but there's an explanation for that. And so I just bring it up as, you know, this sort of yin and yang I keep experiencing. I know that teachers do know where their kids are at. You know, I feel confident that if you were to walk into a classroom right now, you know, teachers would be able to say, so-and-so's behind, this person's here, this person's really knocking it out of the park. But I also recognize that those children are now going to likely go on to the next grade, and perhaps maybe that teacher is going to leave, and there might be a need to have these kind of standardized tests. I don't know if one of you want to say anything about that, or if you just rather not at this point.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that what the state will have to contend with is that there is a natural tension. And I think how frequently, even just recently, we've come in even to this committee and you've been looking for data. And so it's always a tension between, we don't want to overtax or overstress a system, but at the same time, it's really important that we have information about where folks are so that we can make a plan about where they're going to go. And I think that there are strategies, and certainly I think the DMED team, I think probably our state director of assessment, you know, Dr. Geller would probably come in to talk through what we might need to do. I would, just as a reminder, say that the federal government has been very clear that we cannot request a waiver, that we must assess. And so to a certain degree, I think
kind of a
what
mute point.
Yeah,
right?
that we want to
yeah.
focus on how to provide the strategies to reduce the stress levels so people
Right.
understand the intent.
Yep. It's a great point. Families, children, teachers. Senator Lyons.
Well, yeah, just along the lines of the federal government, at the same time that our institutions of higher learning are rejecting the need for standardized testing for entry. And I guess I do have a question. How many are the SATs currently online for kids? Is that going to happen? And how many of the tests that the standardized tests that are now in schools are online, if any?
Good question.
Yeah. So the SAT, you know, there are online options for the SAT. I would say that because this is such a big topic and it is so important, and because it really is, you know, something that we want to proceed in a nuanced way, I would really recommend having our team come back to speak to that. I know that there are some bills that have been put forward only so that we can actually walk through each of the components. We've got title funds all wrapped up in that. Those title funds support the most marginalized populations, right? Again, it's really easy, and I think this committee has always been holding vigilance against those sort of offhand comment. We know, like, we invective around like, oh, you're making decisions based on money. It's really not. It really comes down to supporting students. And so anything that we do, we want to really work through all of the implications of our actions and how they might unintentionally further harm those who we know are most vulnerable. And I think that that requires its own fulsome discussion. And I would defer to our director of assessment.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for Ms. DeCarolis or Ms. Porcella? It's been a very helpful conversation, very helpful day. Appreciate the two of you coming in. Any final comments from either of you at this point? Okay, well, thanks again. And I hope everybody enjoys celebrating Just Carolus Day.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
We only have a few more hours to celebrate.
I
Thank
see
you
an all
very-
AOE email coming out pretty soon. It's
There we
Oh,
go.
dear.
Okay,
just a careless day.
thank
Okay.
you very much.
Thank you.
Daphne, would you take us offline?